Good evening, our esteemed viewers. Welcome to the tower once again this evening. We're here right away in Boston as our main studios for this the tower at UNN, and we are trying to digest what has happened in the week. This week we have had a lot of issues that have come over, and we are going to digest these very issues. Uganda seems to be going into elections, and these elections seem to be a diversionary exercise that cannot yield any good effect. You remember the Electoral Commission of Uganda declared the National Resistance Movement Andrew Mwonge in the recent LOC5 by-election, which was marred by a lot of irregularities, malpractices, and violence. The military and police were heavily deployed, which gave a very bad precedent to the public and the general international community. This election came over after the death of the LOC5 chairman, FFK, Muhammad Serubogo, who died in a mysterious death as well. We also had another issue of the demonstrating medics who had their issue that they wanted to give or elaborate to the to the Speaker of the Parliament. In the process, they were beaten up, and their dignity was put down. They wanted to. With me in the studios, I have many guests, and I have Honorable Gerard Kayunga. Honorable, you're welcome to the tower at UNN. Unmute yourself, Honorable. We don't hear you.
So, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and I hope we can share the issues that are present in our country.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Once again, in the studios, I have Kisitu Elias as usual. Is our analyst, UNN analyst. Mr. Kisitu, you are welcome to the tower tonight. Welcome to the tower.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Nudin, once again, to be with you. And I thank all our viewers, wherever you are. Still, I take this opportunity to greet everyone that always spares some time, some money to put in some time, such that he or she can watch us live here. Hope to discuss a lot of issues pertaining to our country, Uganda, our motherland, Uganda, and I'm sure at the end we shall have picked something out of the discussion. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Elias from Uganda, as usual, PG district. I'm so happy that again I'm in the studio. Thank you so much, the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu. Again, on phone from Uganda, I have Charity Ahimbisiwe. Madam Charity, we're happy to have you together with us here at UNN, the tower.
Thank you, Dr. Juko. Very good evening to all our viewers and listeners. Greetings from Uganda, where spaces are getting closed and we're having fewer and fewer audiences where we can speak about issues affecting our democracy, issues affecting our livelihood as a people. And so I'm excited to be at the UNA conversation for the first time, and I hope it won't be the last time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We usually have a lot of discussions here and there, and we thank you, our viewers, and as we very live on all our streaming channels and our radio station, UNN radio station, and our website is streaming direct to the public. Let me have Chisitu. Start with Chisitu. Chisitu, you have been in Uganda and you have seen how things have been moving when it came to the election. Can you give us an overview of the election that has recently been, taken or done in Kayunga?
Yeah, thank you so much, the moderator, for once again the opportunity you've granted to me. Really, I'm so much privileged to discuss about the issues that are pertaining our country. Sometimes I feel like as if shedding tears, because the democracy that we always yearn for is not practiced the way we always want it to be. The democracy that the President of the Republic of Uganda always assures the world, when you come around the opposite, is true. Every now and then, the president is always commenting about the democracy that exists in Uganda, the human rights that are being respected in Uganda, Uganda being a very good country for every other person to live in. But sincerely, when you look at the actual practices on the ground, they tell the opposite what the president of the Republic of Uganda already communicates. To begin with, when you look at the issue of Kayunga by-elections, we can all understand that Kayunga as a district in the general elections, they voted for the late Serugo, who died, and the reports are saying that the gentleman killed himself. But sincerely, up to now, we still have a lot of question marks that led to the death of Serugo. It is known everywhere that the gentleman who was voted for as the LC5 chairperson of the district was a person who could advocate for the rights of these people, protecting the land in Kayunga, and every other things that affect the human beings, the social life of a human being. So, to all of us who are the viewers outside there, everyone should understand the background of the by-elections. The by-elections were put in place after the death of the voted for Mr. the late Serugo. The way he died, it is still questionable. A lot of question marks are still there. Up to now, we are not convinced with the report that the police has provided us with. Still, to look at Kayunga being a new district of if it was put in place in 2001, that is when it started. It did no more populations, and this is 2022. Those are something like 20 years in existence as a district. It is still too young with a lot of problems, being affected with floods, being affected with land problems, being affected with ignorance and so on. Within people, poor education facilities in Kayunga. One thing that it has so far achieved, I think it was at the promotion of its hospital to the level of being a referral hospital. That as a district. But the other things in it, they are so bad, and still is affected by its leaders being at rubbing shoulders with another. The leaders, most especially from the ruling party, NRM. Everyone knows that the top leaders in Kayunga district, they are rubbing shoulders. The elections in Kayunga, all of us have been following all those things. Were characterized with tension. People were on tension. The army dominating everything, everywhere, and as far as campaigns are concerned. Intimidations, a lot of intimidations. People were intimidated, and you could go to vote when you're not even sure whether your life is safe. And when you look at Kayunga, unequal grounds of campaigning, people in the ruling side, people in the driving seat, dominating everything, not providing a fair ground for campaigns to take place. And the army and the police would give a protection to one side, and doesn't favor the other side, and the other side is was always rewarded in the way of imprisoning its members, beating up its members, using money to buy the voters, 4,000, 3,000, depending on your status. You look at an old woman and old man being bought for only 4,000 to cast your vote in favor of the candidate of their choice, and you think that democracy is respected. Democracy is not bought by any other coin. Democracy is supposed to be natural. Democracy, it is something that someone does out of his or her free will. But if we reach to a level where democracy is just bought, then it ceases to be democracy, but rather it becomes autocracy. Still, people, journalists, real voters, the people campaigning in one camp, being beaten up, and some medias of communication in Uganda actually coming up and putting up a clear communication that we shall not broadcast live all the elections in Kayunga. Then you wonder, does Uganda have democracy? What went wrong exactly? Then still, you look at the issue of disrespecting the democracy that they always talk about. Electoral Commission taking a side. I have never seen a presiding officer coming up on the day of voting when the ballots are already ticked and everything. You see, reading over votes. All of those are the things that were in Kayunga. Then looking at the voting in summary, voting in Uganda, finally, the by-elections in Kayunga correctly confirmed that voting in Uganda has zero meaning. And therefore, there is no any reason as to why we should continue participating in elections. At one time, I remember one of the political scholars in Uganda here, one of the political activists in Uganda here said that Uganda's voting doesn't make any meaning, and there's no any reason as to why we should continue participating in voting. We look at, looking at the consequences of the voting, it is the common man, the common person, the local person on the ground suffering. And to all of us, the viewers, Kayunga as a district, looking at the by-election, everything was in total mess. And therefore, I don't understand whether Kayunga as a district voted for a chairperson who will be in office as per the will of the people. Looking at the rules that will come up provided by the governor of the district, will the people on the ground respect the chairperson voted for? Chairperson will see 5 or not? Then you're going to see in future that the police and the army will come in to enforce the laws, that all the regulations which the district president, because the L5 chairperson is the only district, will have put in place because of the fact that he's in control, but the voting was not from the majority. To all those who are not on ground, to the counting of all the adding up of all the results ended at around 5 to 6 a.m. in the morning. But announcing of the winner, it happened after 3 hours. After 3 hours, and all those officials from the Electoral Commission were seated, very busy on their phones, when people are trying to feed it around with the computers to change the results. And at the end, an official from the Electoral Commission communicated that we had some technical errors within the data, the adding and so on. That is why it has the process of announcing the winner has delayed. Why are you giving us those excuses? For all over 3 hours, we are just waiting to see who the winner is. And it is the Electoral Commission which clearly engaged in the rigging of votes. And therefore, the order from above worked. Which order from above? Remember, as the president was campaigning, he said that if you vote for anything which is not NRM, you never get services in your district. And we have got very many regions in Uganda which have got NRM sitters, NRM flag bearers. When they are still backward, nothing has been done. Therefore, the things of voting in Uganda, as manifested in Kayunga by-election, they no longer make any meaning. I beg to submit. Thank you so much, the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu, for the wonderful introduction of the situation that we have in Uganda, and particularly the issue of the election. Mr.
Dickens, I
Kisitu,
hear nothing.
Mr. Kisitu, if you can again elaborate more, can I have is Charity on? Okay, Mr. Kisitu, if you can look at what is going on in Uganda, it seems like we have lost focus when it comes to issues of election. Would you please look at it anymore, more about it? Yes. Can I have, if I can have Charity on. Yes, Charity. Hope you hear me now. Yes, Charity. Okay. Let's have a short break, and we come back to answer some of the questions that Mr. Kisitu has put across. Welcome back from the short break as we try to analyze issues concerning Uganda. And right now, as in the studio, as I mentioned, I have Honorable Kayunga Jared, I also have areas Kisitu, and I have Charity all the way from Uganda. Charity is the executive director of SEDU, which is a non-government organization renowned for democracy, fighting for democracy, as well as trying to make sure that the rule of law prevails in Uganda. I have Charity. You hear me? Yes, Charity. Do you hear me? Okay, let me bring in Kisitu. Let me bring in Mr. Kisitu. Mr. Kisitu, we seem to be having a continuous situation, regardless of yielding no results. In the process, people tend to go for voting when, in actual fact, they cannot get anything out of the voting. Do you see it sustainable when people go for voting when they expect to get something else? It seems like already a game that has already planned.
Okay, so it is not sustainable for people to go voting when they don't get what they expect out of the election. That affects public confidence. It also affects the fact that voters can trust elections. If you will recall our history, we chose to have a constitution that would work for the citizens of Uganda, such that we did not have to go back into a bloody war. In 1980, the NRM decided to go to the bush because they said they had been to the polls and they had been cheated in the polls. They chose not to use constitutional means like going to court, and they decided to go to the bush because they said they could not trust the court systems. They could not trust the systems as they existed. So they preferred to go fight and come to set up the system. And indeed, when they took over power in 1996, the first speech that President Museveni gave at the parliament, he said, I have brought a fundamental change, not just a mere change of guard. And so the expectation from the Ugandan people after the promulgation of the 1995 constitution and why he had been believed to go to the bush was because in 1962, there had been a constitution that had been abolished. Then there was one that came in 1967. It suffered the same thing and there was a crisis, the Uganda crisis. And remember, almost all the laws that existed in Uganda had been born out of Buganda, the Lukiko, and the 1900 Buganda Agreement. So there was a crisis. And when he said, I'm going to the bush, he had massive support because of the political terrain. But now he comes, and many years later, Ugandans believe that the fundamental change he promised in the constitution by making the constitution pro-people will be reflective of even our electoral processes, and it is not. The disappointing thing is that all contenders who went into the Kayunga process came out, the person who was supposed is returning, even the electors. I do have records from NRM supporters saying we don't believe we won the Kayunga election. So if you see the population, the public court, judging that the election was not properly conducted, it means the election falls short of the goodwill of those who go to cast the vote. And so public confidence in the systems, in the institutions, in electoral commission has dipped, in the court system has dipped, in parliament has dipped. And once you get the public confidence dipping in institutions, then the democracy is really limping. A democracy only works when the institutions are strong and when the people have their voice heard. The only way a person's voice is heard is through the ballot paper. And so when you tell me to explain if people will still feel they are motivated to go and vote, I see that that is going to be a hard call. I'll give you statistics from the 2021 elections. In 2021, we had 15 million voters who registered to vote. 7.4 of those 15 million voters chose to stay away from the polls. That tells you already that they cannot trust the system in which they were supposed to vote. In Kayunga itself, you had 190,977 people register to vote, but only about 75,000 showed up to the polls. What does that tell you? The bulk of them could not go and vote. And indeed, they even posted on their social media accounts, we cannot trust the process. When we go to the polling station, our ballots were pre-ticked. When we go to the polling stations, we found stuffing of ballot papers. We saw voter bribery, so we cannot take part in such a process. They spoke. So when that happens, it means that it is time to go back to the drawing board. These issues of electoral malpractices and electoral ills have existed in Uganda's political terrain right from 1996. Now I talk about the new constitution. I'll not go earlier than 1996. Let's stick with the new constitution of 1995. From 1996 to 2001 to 2006 to 2011 to 2016 to 2021 and through all the by-elections, because the by-elections happen within the electoral cycle. And usually the by-election is supposed to be a cure for what went wrong in a previous election. But this Electoral Commission of Justice Byabakama seems hell-bent on breaking the goodwill of Ugandan voters.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Charity. Go ahead. Let me bring in, I think we have lost Charity for now. Let me have a video that was talking about the Kayunga election, and then we start from there.
Voting closed at 4 p.m. Most polling stations opened on time, but voters slowly headed there.
I know very well that our health facilities are only structures, infrastructure, but inside there, there is no medicine.
Let me call upon all the people of Kayunga to be vigilant today.
In other places, some polling materials were
Dr.
delivered
Duko,
late
I'm
and
here.
voting
Do you
started
hear
after
me?
7 a.m. At Seta polling station in Kangulumira sub-county, voters who arrived before 7 a.m. complained that the ballot boxes already had ballot papers in them. The process was halted for some time and security officers surrounded the polling station. Electoral Commission spokesperson Paul Bukenya said the materials were intact when they were delivered.
You witnessed us sending off ballot papers in the morning, rather the polling kit. That's how everything is set out to be. You make sure that you send a complete kit and make sure that you have transparent processes. So
Bukenya said the voting at this polling station later continued.
Well, the matter, when the returning officer got a complaint officially, the team was sent out to look at it and report back. And she's been furnished a report, and I think during the final stages of the electoral program, the tallying of results and all that, she'll be able to communicate. The
National Unity Platform Party told journalists that the process was marred by irregularities.
The reason why we are participating in these elections is because we want to exercise the power of the people. But if you continue to provoke people every time we have an election, then it is unfortunate.
You have 4 MPs arrested, speakers of local division, local government councils arrested, and the mayors arrested, and yet the whole of government apparatus, nearly everybody in the Electoral Commission is here.
Meanwhile, the National Resistance Movement, whose candidate Andrew Mwonge is making a second attempt at the seat, said accusations about rigging against them are unfounded.
They will even tell you that last night they arrested people who came to ballot staff for NUP candidate. And they're in the police cells. You can go there and verify the record.
The NUP members also complained about the arrests of their colleagues.
So as I talk, we have 61 people in custody, and all of them, they will be appearing in court on charges of disobedience of lawful orders.
Juma.
Yes, thank you very much for that video. Charity, when you hear this kind of situation happening in Kayunga, you wonder how the mockery for democracy is going on, with impunity. You look at the president himself was very categorical when he said when they go for polls, it is NRM that decides. NRM
yes,
has to decide.
The mockery for democracy is real, Uganda, because I think what needs to happen in this circumstance of Kayunga, it's already a by-election that has taken place. But I also think it is possible for us to have a second by-election if NUP goes to court and can produce the DR forms that are not in tandem with what the Electoral Commission reported. And if they proved voter bribery, because voter bribery under the law is illegal, and if it is under a competent court, of course, we know that our court system right now is full of very many cadre judges, and we have seen very many rulings that come out, and they're unfortunate. But I also feel that if a court is overwhelmed with evidence of pre-ticked ballot papers, of ballot stuffing, of voter bribery, of DR forms, credible DR forms produced by the Electoral Commission, not tallying with themselves, that court would have no choice but to rule in favor of whoever has produced evidence. So I think NUP right now stands a chance of going to court, produce evidence. Let us continue trying our democracy, because it won't help any Ugandan if we went back to the bush right now. If we had a war breaking out, everybody would suffer. It's not like the ones who have perpetuated the pain on Ugandans will be the only ones to suffer. Even the ones that have already been suffering will go ahead and suffer. So the best thing to do is to put the democracy on trial. Let us continue putting it on trial by going to the systems that are supposed to work. And when they don't work, we expose them through platforms like the one you've just created here at UNA. We come speak about the issues, broadcast them across the world, that the world will know there is human rights violations happening in Uganda. And even when we are being reviewed in the universal peer review mechanism in January, we protest outside the UN offices on what the Ugandan government is reporting, which is contrary to what is happening. So we put the democracy on trial until when the democracy will begin to work for the citizens for whom it purports to be working. Because right now, the democracy is not working for the citizens. Article 1 says power belongs to the people. Article 38 says people will have a right to participate in the governance of their country. But as you heard from Chisitu there, he told us that the journalists were bundled up in pickups, true, beaten, thoroughly beaten, not allowed at the tally center, closed out completely. You're a journalist. You're looking for information. All you want to do is send information to the public on what is going on at the polls and let the public decide for themselves. And you're blocked. You're given a blackout. No information. You're told you can't report. Then what are you doing there? Because if you can't give people information, then the right to opinion and expression as guaranteed in Article 29 of the Constitution is already flaunted. And also the right to associate. If I believe I belong to NUP, I belong to NRM, I belong to DP, I belong to UPC, and we are participating in an election, and then you close our party agents, you put them behind bars. You pick our defenders or people who belong to our party and close them up, like was the case in Kayunga. Then what are you doing? You're blocking the right to assembly. You're blocking the right to associate and to opinionate. And so pull the damn constitutional clauses out of that constitution. Let's have no right to associate. Let us have no right to express and opine. Let us have no right to information as provided in the Information Act and as provided in the Constitution. And then we live with it. And then we begin to see the 1967 abolition coming back. Because eventually when that Constitution can't amount to anything, then it will be abolished by whoever it is that will choose to abolish it. I don't know whether it will be NRM that will choose to abolish it. I don't know whether it will be a new person who will choose to abolish it. So if that is the direction we're taking, then so be it. If it is that the opposition candidates cannot participate in the process, then do not go ahead to pretend that you are a plural democracy, that you stand for pluralism, that you have multi-parties that are functioning in your country. Stand as NRM alone and go to the polls alone. Vote for yourselves alone. Win yourselves alone. Don't allow other people to participate and then close them up, choke them, stop them from talking, fail them from participating, fail them from associating, and yet all these rights are enshrined in the Constitution. I also thought that it is important to underscore the fact that our electoral processes since 2011 have become extremely violent. And the violence keeps growing by every election. 2016 had a lot of bullets and shootings in Bushenyi and in Fort Portal. We saw bullets all over the place. In 2021, I think I do not need to belabor the point. There were the November 16th and 17th killings of 54 Ugandans. That is the lower note in the Uganda police report. But the higher note in the human rights report was 100 people dead. But there are many others that died that we do not know where they are. There are those who were carried in what we call drones at that point, immediately after elections. The question of drones became a big question in Uganda. People disappeared, relatives went away, people lost their friends, their relatives, their parents. People are living in fear, like Chisitu said there. People are living in intimidation, in anxiety. But why should you live in fear in your country? Why should you live under intimidation for only participating in an electoral process? So if to guarantee your security is for you not to participate, so be it. Then don't allow people to participate. Let it be known that you're not supposed to participate in an election, and don't go ahead to arrange an election, because an election is a marketplace of ideas. An election is a contestation of ideas. An election is a place where the citizen finally decides who has given him the best ideas. An election is a hallmark for democracy. Democracy most certainly has very many principles, and one of them being transparency. We didn't see any transparency happening in Kayunga. We didn't see any transparency in the 2021 electoral processes. So this electoral commission, as it is by Simon Byabakama, is hell-bent on breaking transparency in electoral processes. They do not want to work with observers. They don't want observers to say anything about their processes. They feel they own the processes, and yet the Constitution does say the Electoral Commission will organize elections on behalf of Ugandans. They are just there to serve Ugandans. A full justice of the High Court of Uganda cannot interpret the Constitution to understand that the power he wields or the power he thinks he wields comes from the Ugandan people. It is unfortunate. Thank you, Dr. Juko. I hope
Charity,
this time you heard me.
Thank you very much, Charity, for the wonderful submission regarding the situation that we have in Uganda. On phone, I have Mr. Owori Stephen. Mr. Owori,
yes.
Nice hearing from you.
Yes.
You are loud and clear. The situation that seems to have happened in Kayunga is worrying, and everybody is talking about it. What's your take about it? It seems to be a mockery of democracy, as Charity has mentioned. And, you know, you wonder why we should continue having election all the time when it is already predetermined. What's your take on this?
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, and all the panelists who have participated in this serious talk, and all my listeners outside there. Good evening from Uganda. It is very unfortunate that I have not had the presentation of others, but it's okay, I can still contribute. Now, I happen to know Kayunga very well. Kayunga is a multi-ethnic district with almost 52 tribes of Uganda. They are all residing in there. Now, what happened was a hot contest, a very hot contest between not individuals, but between these two gigantic parties, that is the NRM and the NUP party, that is the National Unity Platform. Now, when you look at what happened and what has been happening, of course, it is not a surprise. For quite a long time, those who are wielding power has been using elections just as the platform to manipulate people. They have just been using elections to fulfill their own aspirations, well aware that the outcomes of these elections do not represent people's will or people's aspirations. Now, when you go to Kayunga particularly, you will discover from the ground that squarely the NRM candidate Andrew Munge was won by a difference of 15,000 votes. I took time to ask a number of people who are there, including my trusted journalists. My trusted journalists who are there. And there's no way Andrew Munge would even draw closer. Now, what is happening? Why it happened like that? Two reasons. Reason number one was that NRM having lost a foothold in Uganda region. It was a vote of no confidence because Uganda region is by far the largest region, and therefore politically it matters a lot. You lose the confidence of Uganda, you are gone. When Dr. Bote lost the confidence of Uganda, it was obvious that he had to go. Now, when the results of 2021 happened the way they happened, these results sent a very big shock to Museveni and his hegemony that their time was up. Now, when they went to Kayunga, they wanted to show that they still had a foothold in Uganda and that they were still a darling, which was not true. And it was the reason why they went with over 4 billion Ugandan shillings, close to $1 million. It was the reason why the president had to go there. It was the reason why the prime minister had to abandon our work, and all the big shots of government, plus all the state apparatus, they all had to go in Kayunga. It was the reason why, amidst all other by-elections that were happening elsewhere, it was the reason why the entire Electoral Commission had to camp in Kayunga. The reason was that for NRM, they wanted to reclaim their tinted image. They wanted to reclaim Kayunga to show the public that NRM is now beginning to recover what it lost, which is not true. Now, for NUP on the other side, on the other hand, for them they wanted to show that they still had the influence. They wanted to show that they are the new breed. They have swallowed Besigye and his red card campaign, and therefore they could do it alone. It is true that NUP could still perform very well in Kayunga, but it is very unfortunate that they had to lose it all. Why NUP lost? NUP lost for obvious reasons. This was the second time that they were robbing victory from their hands. For example, when we had a similar by-election in Hoima, when Nyakato was contesting against, I think, Birungi, somebody of that kind, it was obvious that the opposition candidate won. But because the people who are surrounding the opposition candidate, these were novices in politics. They did not know much about the machinations of these NRM guys. These are guys who have been in the field of stealing votes, manipulating elections for over 30 years. This has been their field. And therefore, you cannot beat them in their own game unless when you are a mature, faced politician. Now, for NUP in Kayunga, why they lost? It was because they chose to go alone. They left the cadres who have been in this field for some good time. And so, the likes of Nambose, Serunjojo Wedeme, the mayor of Kawempe, they couldn't do anything. And to make matters worse, an evening before, many of them had been arrested. Others had been brutalized. And so, there was no way they could really sustain the victory that they had won. So, they got the votes, but they couldn't be declared winners. Why? Because there were novices in this field. Now, what is the lesson that we pick from this? Lesson number one, as long as these people are still in charge, it is very important that the opposition, regardless of our party colors, regardless of our individual interests, the opposition needs to come together. We need to borrow a leaf from what the opposition did in Kenya. These guys set aside their differences and they had to unite for a purpose. And it is the reason why now, when you look at Kenya, Kenya is far better than all that is happening in Uganda. When you look at Kenya, they are united for a purpose, and for them, when they choose to unite, they are always achieved. In Uganda, it is all about manipulation. So, my humble appeal to those who can reach out to our brothers, the Chagulanyi and their friends, that they need to understand that they are still novices. They are still young in the field of opposition politics. And therefore, they need to be around mature-faced politicians that are able to contest and match up against NRM and the Electoral Commission machinations. All of you are listening to me, especially those who are well versed with the Ugandan election history. You'll discover that we have had a series of contestations, especially regarding to the outcome of elections. We have not had an election since 1996, after 1996, that has not been contested. Its outcome. When you look at 2001, Kiza Besigye and the group, they had to go to the courts of law. 2006, it was the same. Until yesterday, we have never had satisfactory elections. And the obvious reason for this, it is because the playing field is not fair. That is number one. Then number two, when it comes to elections in Uganda, it's like a war has been declared against a rebellion. In Uganda, the ruling party does not accommodate alternative views. That is the challenge that we have
yes,
with
Mr.
Uganda.
Ward, if I'm to chip in there, it's quite cumbersome. I mean, when you look at a situation whereby if somebody is going into the fight and you know that the fight is already lost because the other one has all the ways to manipulate, what should we go the way it is done? And I mean, why don't we leave? And
No. I think let me hope I've got you well. That now that we know that the outcome of these elections, once we enter into them, they are known. Why don't we leave? No, we cannot leave because
no, I'm not saying we should leave. I'm not saying we should leave. I mean, you know, as a lecturer of strategic management, whenever there is any approach and you see it not working, you need to sit down and restructure and find out the best way to do it. But it seems like they're using the same approach all the time and getting the same results.
Of course, yeah, in that context, you are very right. But Uganda is a young democracy that every time we participate, no matter the results, there are lessons that are picked. There are so many things that we keep on learning. Of course, Museveni and the Musevenism that is happening, time will come when they will go. Moi was in Kenya for 24 years, and there was no way an election would be organized when Moi was in the field and you would think he would win. But time came when Moi had to leave the stage. I also think that with the Electoral Commission on their side, all the army on their side, the judiciary on their side, and all the finances on their side, still, even at that level, we are still picking lessons. And for me, I want to believe that time will come when every section of Ugandans will have appreciated the reason as why we need to Uganda. At the moment, the reason why things are happening like this is because we have a generation that is not aware that their vote matters. That is number one. We have a generation that is not knowledgeable. Number two, we have a generation that do not care. But let me tell you, as we continue doing the same, as we continue to participate and making elections part of our democracy, time will come when we will begin now to make them or to conduct them in the best way. Why? Because generations, you may remember that 30 years ago, when you would go to Karamoja, it was very common to find people naked. And it was very common to find these people very, very rude. But today, when you go to Karamoja, you'll find people dressed up in clothes, educated, and a little bit hospitable, welcoming people. So I also believe and think that we are not far away from reaching where we are about to reach. We are not far away from reaching where we need to reach. So no matter what is happening now, for me, I believe the time is coming when we will have a credible election. Apart from these sham and mocker elections that we've been having already, we believe Museveni, just like I gave you the reasons behind, is that Museveni has been given a vote of no confidence. Whatever happened, he even made a statement and said, NRM has the last word. I was looking at a video clip when he made a statement and said, NRM has the last word. And so he concluded by saying, this election we are taking, we are winning. Meaning that it was already predetermined, no matter what should have been done, they were determined. They manipulated the Abakama, and they even had to bring some other person who is not the the returning office of the district, they hired some other person who could execute their machination, and that is Kobutunji. Kobutunji is not the returning office of Kayunga, but she was imported for that very reason, that out of shame, she would declare twisted results against the will of the people. So Dr. Juka and others, whatever happened in Kayunga, it has been happening. It is not a new thing. But of course, as people who wish Uganda well, we are saying we cannot give up. We'll keep on participating until one day when it will be very hard for them to twist and manipulate results. Rome was not built in one day, my brother. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Wari. Let's have you from there. Let me bring in Kisitu. Mr. Kisitu.
Yes.
You seem to be so deep into the politics of Uganda, Mr. Kisitu. We want you to give a clear view as to why you continue going for election, which you know is full of malpractice, and you don't change the approach.
Hello.
Dr. Adrian, can you please repeat that question?
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Juko. Yes. Could you please repeat that question?
I will send a question to Kisitu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nudin, for once again the opportunity granted, such that I can talk about this pertinent issue. Why do people continue to engage into elections? This is what I picked. Why do people continue to participate into elections when they know it's really a shame? Sincerely, when you try to make research down, today I've been at some village in Ipigi district. The village is called Bomozi in Konge Parish, Pigi Town Council. And I've tried to interact with a number of people, citizens, those ones who do not engage in this high-level politics. But I would ask them, why do they really engage into voting when they know that results will be a shame at the end? Like how the moderators brought it out clearly. Sincerely, the following explain why people always continue to engage into elections when they know at the end they are a shame, and they'll keep crying, they'll be beaten up, they will lose their lives, the people will lose their relatives, their sisters, their brothers, their fathers, their uncles, and so on. One, the influence of the ruling government. Always, whenever the government stays so long into power, people always look at it as a semi-god existing somewhere, and in that, if they do not participate into elections, they will not retain what they have so far accumulated in the country. To give an example, there are people who always participate into elections to please the president or the person in the driving seat, such that they can continue sharing the cake that they always get in the avenues which are not clear, and those people are there in the country. And there are those who even come to participate into politics just for fun, without a clear that they just come to engage into politics, and even if this person loses 100 times, we would be participating, and you find out that that is a very big problem, and that contributes to why people continue to engage into election even when it is really a shame. If sincerely Uganda didn't have the influence of the ruling government, you'd see two serious people contesting into elections. But now you're seeing a number of them coming up when people do not have even the clear agenda as to why they have come up to contest for elections. Then the other, ignorance of the tactics being used by the dictators, most especially from us, the public. The public is not aware that for a dictator to be in power for so long without being questioned by the European communities, by the Western world, will try to put up elections to please the world that there is democracy in the country, and what will happen on ground will be the opposite. And dictators all over the world always use this such that they can, such that they can keep themselves into power. One time, the late Kayunga al-Gaddafi told President Museveni in their conversation that why don't you remove these elections because they make zero meaning, and President Museveni never bought the idea. And because he knows that the moment he removes these fake elections, these shadow elections, all the Western world and everyone outside will perceive him as a real dictator. But he tries to hide himself into this shadow of putting up elections, yet it is a tactic of making sure that he keeps himself into power for so long. Now, this is something that everyone must understand. The 2021 elections, presidential elections, they involved a lot of rigging, a lot of malpractices, and no one bothered. And even the people we are contesting, everyone was talking of planning, nothing happened. And now, the rigging of votes to the presidential level has went down to the local council level, and you're seeing it happening. Yes, it has been happening in the past, but not as a how it has happened today, because this of the Kayunga by-election, either the rigging of votes, the malpractices, they happen in the broad daylight, and no one is bothering, nothing to do else. And every one of us is talking of making sure that we go to the court, we report that we got the case, we come up with all our reforms in comparison to what the EC received officially. But when we also know that the courts of law will not give us the justice that we need, remember that where justice does not prevail, injustice will prevail at one point. And if people are not given that chance for justice, at the end, you will see the opposite. Then the other tactic that is making people to continue getting into elections, even when they not be able to be ashamed, it is the high level of hypocrisy within the politicians that we do trust. When they come to us on the ground, they communicate, they talk to us, they still talk to us, they appear as being so good to us, the citizens, the public, the local individuals. But when they reach some other side, they also speak the other language around. They don't stick to what they always tell the public. They are so much hypocritical in that they will never stand on their word. That is why you see them continuing to engage into elections. Still, this tactic is used by a dictator who wants to keep himself into power domestically. Fund those ones who want to engage into politics. Yes, give them the finances they need. Let them come up and contest. Let them try to confuse the world. So in summary, they try to use the direct and rule policy, the dictators, and they will always use that. And that makes the politicians that the world trusts so much to become hypocritical in nature. And consequently, we shall continue having this kind of situation in our elections up to when we wake up. Then the other, the ignorance of us, the local people. Some of the people do not know why they are voting. They even vote for people whom they even don't know. That is very much a problem. It is and the only thing that I think we have to do is making sure that we teach the world, we teach our neighbors, everyone that moves around in Uganda, everywhere, be it a border person that understands something to do with democracy. Let them teach them that democracy means A, B, C, D. And the way how things are going on is not right. Let all of us try to enlighten each other in that way. But if we try to look at people converging such that they can talk about democracy through the public management bill, that cannot exist in Uganda. But now what we have to do is talking to people. There are some people, the philosophers, people, the motivational speakers who will speak about democracy. When those people are just our neighborhood, they are strengthening the research that we make, such as that we can see our country being revamped from a slump in which it is in right now. Then the other white people continue to engage into politics when, in fact, they know it is a shame. It is that the country lacks a clear direction. If you are asked right now, all the leaders in the country, even the citizens in Uganda, where is the direction of Uganda? Which direction are we taking? How are we going to reach at the development goals that we always dream about? What direction is our country going into? Where is the president taking our country? Today, I've gotten a chance to associate with the retired Makerere, that is Professor John Lumba Sentamu. And he was like, we are functioning somewhere. And the gentleman was like, our country is totally going into a direction in which it is not supposed to go into. And people, the elites, they know that the way how things are going on is not right. But they also question their security. If they come up and speak, what will happen to their security? So we are in total mess completely. Who are those individuals that will not bother about how things are going on and they'll come up and speak? Where are those ones? In Uganda, when you try to speak about democracy, when you try to show that indeed they are to stand for this poor other person down there on the ground, they will never give you that listening ear. And the government, what it will do, it is to make sure that the drone finds you somewhere, you're taken when even relatives don't know. So to those ones who can come up and speak, we should continue doing this. These platforms like UN should continue to be spread all over the world, such that different people could come up and speak about democracy in our country, Uganda. Then the other, to tell the world that we shall continue to have this kind of elections up to when the common man has understood his all have value in the country. Up to when the local Ugandans have understood that they have a share in their country, Uganda. By the time we check when the local Ugandan, the certain person, they need us Ugandan, that's the poor Ugandan, the one who pays the taxes that are used to rig the elections, the ones who pay taxes which are used to buy the voters, the ones who pay taxes and the taxes are used to buy the drones, to buy the tear gas, to buy the batons which are used to beat the people up. Up to when they come up and they understand that the country belongs to them, that is when we shall have a country with democracy. To just a second, Mr. Momota, to all the countries that are having the democracy that we always talk about, they have had revolutionary changes. They have had that. And please, all of those countries, who are those that champion the revolutions? They are the poor people in the country. They are the people who don't even have any seat, who didn't even have any seat in the ruling government. They are the people who didn't even have what you could call to do a pen in their hands. But everyone
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kisi. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have Honorable Gerard on phone from Kampala. Honorable, it's pleasure as well having you over at UNN.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I hope you can hear me.
You need to speak a little louder because it's like we have can you speak a little louder?
Yes, I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
Better? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. So I'm glad I've been following and listening in. It is certainly a critical point in our history as a country. For so long, we've been hoping that the seeds of democracy could sprout and begin to see fruits of democracy. Unfortunately, the current regime has been very clear about its dictatorial approach.
So what we witnessed for over 3 decades now is basically an incremental process of dictatorial tendencies. So there are things this regime would not scrutiny as India for service. And so then they did when 20 years down the road. So in 2005, we saw a clear bribery of Parliament to amend the Constitution and remove the presidential term limits. Just like we saw just in the 10th Parliament. Again, Parliament entirely the same, almost the same thing that happened in 2005. So the manipulations and then and all the prevailing in the elections basically a symptom or basically the tip of the iceberg of what is underneath of what this regime is about, of what Ugandans have been facing in the last 35 years. So the involvement of the military, I participated in the previous election. First in 2016, the soldiers were around, the people overwhelmed them, and they were still declared a winner. This year, the regime decided to indeed now overwhelm us with the numbers of soldiers. So if you have about 40 trucks of soldiers, and each truck is carrying over 200 and plus soldiers, they come, line up, not registered, with their guns and uniforms, vote from one polling station to another, and the numbers are so overwhelming that the voters can hardly even try to engage. They are really scared. In fact, most of them didn't even turn up when they saw the numbers of the soldiers. They just run away, run to their homes. So all this has been ongoing, especially in the last 15-20 years. So, and then it's now, as Ugandans, we have to really, for so long, those who may have chosen to look the other side, now it's time to turn our heads. It's time to turn our heads because, as Pastor Nicola said, that first they came for the trade unions, they didn't care because he was the trade unions. And they came for the socialists, he didn't care because he was not a socialist. And then finally they came for him, and then there was no one to care. So we have, because if you think about it, the only reason Museveni has taken us for a ride is because there is a reasonable number of us who have chosen to aid him, who have chosen to facilitate it. I mean, the fellows that work in the Electoral Commission, they are not Congolese. They are neither are they from the farthest part of this world. They are just the Ugandans. The fellows that are used in police in the army. Now, the challenge is that people have been so reduced to survival. So the mentality is now survival. So, however, this survival can also be for a short period. So we may have to also, in our different ways, sacrifice and say, look, we all know our challenge. The leadership we have is the challenge. So how can we be the same people aiding this leadership? And we really care about the things that we are suffering as. So therefore, whereas nature is playing its course, I mean, President Museveni, those who went to the school, now it's in institutes. So, I mean, in the worst case scenario, yes, she will go. But then, I don't think that others can wait anymore. So we have got to stand up. You can imagine if for instance, in Kayunga, if 3/4 of the district had shown up, not just even voters, even people who are not yet to play, but basically to support in huge numbers. And then, even these very people in police, in the army, in the Electoral Commission, they also decided to act genuine and say, but wait a minute, what can we do? Are we going to kill tens of thousands of people? Because we've seen it elsewhere, where eventually the police and the army, because again here Museveni has used the tool of the military to retain power. He basically, because every time he's challenged, and consistently now he has been really challenged politically, he basically pulls the card of the now. But we've seen it also in other places where the army reaches the point and says, oh, wait a minute, enough is enough. We can no longer be used this far. This is how far we could go. However, that has not just happened by itself. It has been out of the very actions of the citizens, seeing the citizens coming up strongly and engaging. And then the army also realizes, oh, we have the people now who are farming, so therefore let's stand with the people. So I think as we criticize the regime, as we criticize Museveni for all the terrible and grave atrocities that he has overseen and committed all this time, we too have to get to each other. We have to get to speak to each other and say, look, as dissenting voices. And people really, this business of saying one is in no position in FDC, come on, those are much smaller things than what you are facing. Where Uganda is dying. So these organizations shouldn't be a distraction. And by now, Museveni really has invested so much in sophistication that he appreciates how to play around with these organizations. So then FDC doesn't talk to NOP, and then NDP is pushed inside, and then so basically instead of us seeing these as opportunities that can bring us together.
Honorable, on the very same note, I talked when we had General Mugisha Muntu here in the studios. I asked him this question, and I'm asking you again. It seems like we are using the same approach all the time from 1981, 1996 up to the present day. When we use the same approach, we get the same answer, which is negative. You know, as strategists, I feel like we need to have another approach to the problem, because the other approaches have not yielded results. It seems like you and your opposition are using the same approach and getting the same wrong answer.
You know, Martin Luther King Jr. said that those who love peace must effectively organize as those who love war. Now, we must be effective in organization. You are right to say that we seem to be doing the same thing over and over again. And yes, I actually think there are some efforts. I mean, honestly, if there were no dissenting voices completely, you can imagine where we would be now as a country. Because if we are where we are, and there have been those who have been really trying so hard, so it would be certainly in a much worse state. However, we need also to get together and realize that, okay, this approach has not yielded results as we had hoped for in the time we had hoped for. So, what are the other approaches? How else can we do it? Is it actually the approach that is the problem, or it's it's the format. It's because you see again, we need to kill it because Seven has over time invested so much in like I said earlier, in sophistication. So he uses two particular tools. So he uses the carrot and the stick. So the stick is carried by the military force. The carrot is basically the money. Yeah. So the money he uses it basically to play with us. So you find that for us, because think about it, how is it possible that our neighbors, for instance, here in Kenya, when they realize that they have a challenge for them in leadership, can get together and put aside their long-held dreams and aspirations and hatred for each other and say, but wait a minute, we have a common challenge, we have to deal with it. Just next door. By the way, we even share some Ugandans really are actually Kenyans and some Kenyans are Ugandans. But how is it so the regime has been so aware, so in a very advertent approach, very deliberate approach. So they were even, by the way, they were even, because I know this is a fact, they were even facilitate some of the opposition elements not support NRM, but not allow the coordination of the opposition or Senate voices. So it is up to us to now kind of retreat and get together and say, but wait a minute, how is it possible that we appreciate that this challenge needs a comprehensive, well-organized, established network among ourselves, but yet we still find ourselves with some of our elements who ordinarily should be helping us to achieve that objective, actually are very, in one or another, very against it or failed it. So that's why I'm telling you that the solution is not going to lie in our just in our organizations per se. It's going to lie in how we can coordinate our efforts, in how we can overwhelm the regime when we are coordinated as a people.
Honorable, before I let you go, one of the great fighters, revolutionary fighters, said that, I think that was Mandela. No, not Mandela, it was Martin Luther. He said that, Martin Luther, I think the king said that the revolutionary voice are usually in three places, either under the ground, or in jail, or in exile. Because now, as you mentioned, everybody has agreed that it's general consensus that the regime we have in Uganda is an occupational regime that looks for suppression of any dissent view. And here we keep to be there all the time. We tend to be like somebody is by the side of the regime. Some of them are helping the regime, unnoticedly, and others are helping him direct, regardless of being in the opposition. How do you think people who are in Uganda, because if you look at history, all the people that have changed Uganda, or have obtained power in Uganda, have all been doing it from outside the country. How do you expect people within the country who are eating from their hands? And from their hands, I'm afraid we have lost, Honorable. Let me go back to Charity. Charity, I hope, Charity, you're hearing me.
Loud and clear this time.
Yes, I think you've been hearing the question I was giving to Honorable, and this is a question I sent you again, that it seems to be that there are those people that are guiding or helping the dictatorship to stay in power, whether directly or indirectly. And on top of that, when you look at what Dr. Messi did, what President Museveni did, it was the negotiation of power. He realized that he could not obtain power from nobody peacefully. He decided, he tried all possible means, he failed. because he knew that Obote had the power, he had to negotiate that power by all means, whether forcefully or anyway. So how do you expect people in Uganda who are eating from the hand of the dictatorship, getting good salaries from the parliament, getting good money from those so-called middle class kind of establishment? How do you expect them to fight for these people, the ordinary person?
Thank you very much. That is a very huge academic thesis that if I did one, I surely should score highly. But let me attempt. The whole idea of people who are helping the dictatorship to stay in power directly or indirectly. And that is the unfortunate bit of the Ugandan elite. You know, the Ugandan elite has decided to eat and forget the plight of the poor. Because of a few coins of silver, they have traded their souls, they have traded their country. To the extent, the president stood and said, as long as they steal this money and are investing it in the country, and they said there is no problem with him saying that, it is okay. Andrew Mwenda came out on TV talk shows, defended him. We had the spokesperson Ofono Opondo coming out and defending him on this statement. I had expected, in all honesty, that at least the elites were going to call out the president to look at the issues from a broader global perspective. Now, as it is, we have very many elites, including my friend Chinove, who is a lawyer. He knows what the Constitution says, but he says there was nothing wrong with the Kayunga by-election. Everything was okay. We expected it to happen that way. We expected pre-ticked ballot papers. Yeah, so he who alleges should prove, is what he says. And he says, look, we have people who record things on their WhatsApps and Facebook and make them look like they are reality when they were just creations. And he says, those things which they are saying that there was ballot stuffing, who was there, who knows it for a fact? And then he says, those who are saying they were bribed by 4,000, do you know that I can come to you and I give you 1,000 shillings and I tell you, let me record you, and you say I gave you 4,000? That's also an allegation. And indeed, as long as the elites continue to play monkey games, we are stuck. And we are stuck in 20 steps backward. So every gain that we had, we shall erode it as long as people want to continue to gain a few pieces of silver. And indeed, they are the ones who have directly or indirectly caused the pain that we face today. I'm certain that if the president was sure that the people he wants to give money are those that will not just agree to everything and anything he says, then he would think twice. And actually, sometimes he says, no, for this particular process, I want to try my technocrats. I'll give you the example of producing a vaccine in Uganda for the students. After he realized that, well, it is possible that vaccines are being produced worldwide, let's try a vaccine for Uganda to give to the Ugandan children just in case we are pushed. He started on a research process with a Ugandan professor, but not too long. There was too much around theft, things in the news, rats being 8 million, and all sorts of stories. Now, his initial thought was a good plan. The plan of saying, look, let us get a vaccine also coming from ourselves, going to our children, was a good plan. And he always comes up with similar plans. I'll give you another plan he has ever had, which would have helped people. He went to Dubai. He spoke to the Dubai management, actually the president of Abu Dhabi, and he told them, we shall supply you goats. That was very good. He looked for market. And Abu Dhabi said, okay, on a monthly basis, we want 10,000 goats because for us, we love halal meat. Uganda only supplied goats for 2 months and were out of goats. So he got the market, but he did not work backwards to plan for Ugandans. He had nobody he worked with to see how many goat farmers does he have that will keep this market up and running. So indirectly, yes, and directly, yes, the elite, the question of the elite. We don't have think tanks in Uganda. The elitist Ugandan is very good at speaking and juxtaposing too much English, but giving actual solutions that are going to help people on the ground to change the democracy that we have. Ugandans have reached the extent of where they say, so what about democracy? We don't eat democracy. Fine, you don't eat democracy, but governance affects everything else. Until we resolve the governance questions, we shall continue to have potholes. We shall continue to sell airports to the Chinese and then say it is okay as long as the Chinese transform it around. We shall continue to see Budongo forest cut down and the effects of climate change coming onto us. We shall continue to suffer the problem of fighting wars which we are not supposed to fight in the first place. We shall continue to see people killed in electoral processes which are supposed to be peaceful. We shall continue to be treated with a high-handed hand from the military and the police. We shall continue to see people intimidated and killed and silenced finally because of the elite who think, for me, since I am eating, let me keep quiet. I cannot talk about these issues. You who want to remain poor, go ahead and talk about them. So the elite, the Ugandan elite, should, as a matter of urgency, begin to think tank. They should think tank by engaging with Ugandans in the diaspora. Dr. Juko, I'm certain you've done a lot of research around the issues that you've just asked me about. I'm certain from the US and from your exposure, you now know what it means to directly or indirectly support hostility. And so engagement with people like yourself would open the brains of many elite Ugandans in to find solutions, homegrown solutions to the problems that we face at the time. I think the other thing that one of the panelists alluded to, which is credible, is the question of civic and voter education. That each time we go into elections, each time we are faced with the circumstances that we are faced with, can we have civic and voter education being stepped up? Can we not continue to listen to the witch hunt ideas that when you empower them, then they will demand more? And right now, 54 NGOs are closed. And you know why those 54 NGOs are closed, including SEDU? Because somebody, an elite, that's what I told you, the Ugandan elite is actually the problem to Uganda right now. The elites went and did their funny intelligence reports and said, these people in civil society have been funded to bring down government. But who in civil society has a gun? Who in civil society has an army? Who in civil society has the ability to bring down a government that was built for the last 35 years and is as solid as a wall? Who has that ability? I think there are certain intelligence reports that must be dismissed with the contempt that anyone with any sense in their head can come with. And this can only happen if there is think tanking over credible things, because civil society organizations help society go forward. They help provide solutions to situations that otherwise were difficult situations. The civil society, for example, has been talking about electoral reforms that can help us have credible electoral processes, and reforms which have never seen the day of, or they've never seen the light of day, because they have been frustrated on the floor of parliament. Instead, every time reforms are brought onto the floor of parliament, what is chosen to be reformed is what only entrenches the regime and doesn't give a chance to anybody else with a dissenting voice. And
yes,
so we.
Charity, can you wind up? And because we have to tackle the second topic because we've caught up by time.
Okay, so I want to wind up by saying we need more spaces of engagement to make our democracy work. We need spaces of engagement both online, offline. You know, for us right now, you cannot go to City Square and have a conversation. You can't. You can't go to a hotel and just have a conversation. There are too many noses around. We need to think outside the box to have more spaces to talk about our democracy, what is killing it, what are the solutions, to talk about the NDP3. We need more level and we need national dialogue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr.
Much, Charity. Thank you very much for that wonderful submission. We have some remaining time, which we need to handle the issue of the medics who are demonstrating. Before I switch to that topic, let me ask the producer to play for me the video about the medics, and then start from there.
Generally, we are very disappointed as medical interns because we expect our mother ministry to be actually part of the people that are advocating for our better welfare, because we belong to them, we are working, we are covering the gap. They've also seen the promises from way back, broken promises. They've seen the progress we have made so far, and at this time we would expect that they actually put the pressure on the implementers, that is finance, to actually release the money. But it's very sad that they chose that route to actually dispose us of, like, you know. Yeah, so it's very disappointing for the medical interns, but for now they are still strong and firm. We had our meeting yesterday, mostly with the leaders, but a few other interns joined in. And, you know, we have been making adjustments in our strike. Before we said we want that presidential directive implemented. Finance later comes and says we can't get the 2.5, but we can get half of what the MOs are getting currently. That is 1.5, and lunch allowance. We said, okay, it's a fair game that they are at least showing concern. Now let them bring the money. They passed the budget, and it's coming to a whole month without that money being released from the time the budget was passed. And we kept adjusting. It may take so long to get to our individual accounts, but can it reach our mother ministry? And then we can go back to work. And we have communicated this over and over.
Thank you very much, my producer, for the short part, for the video that has introduced our discussion. Let me bring in Mr. Kisitu. Mr. Kisitu, you seem to be on the ground, and you have seen, Mr. Kisitu, you seem to be on the ground, and you have seen these people demonstrating have very strong reasons. Would you please dig deep into that before we start the discussion?
Ugandans, and yet the government doesn't look at them. Rarely looks at them as very important workers in the country. Like any other what we in turn, it is always important to make sure that at least the government gives them something in return. I remember, in the past, I remember what I'm talking about. I read this by something back. Teachers who are doing school practice at the universities that they will get the internal allowance. Still, the doctors, through again, I think their universities, I think they are entitled to getting their allowances still. Now, when we try to look at how things are going on, these people demand for some allowances, and the government fails to provide that. And actually, after putting in a lot of health, a lot of force, a lot of strikes, a lot of actually asking for the small support to be given to them. That's when the government happened to wake up and actually it says that okay, we shall provide everything. Remember that these people they risk their life. they don't have all those materials that are needed so that they can operate. For example, the gloves are not to be seen. The coach to put like a responsible doctor, they are not to be seen. I remember one time I was watching Dr. Dana tweet over the Ministry of Health saying that actually they are not entitled to getting anything after all they are students. And if they don't do it in time, they will not get the results. And I looked at such a person who is trying to dictate about things he or she actually she did not know. The thing is, all the students, medical students who go and assist the poor Ugandans in hospitals where the doctors are not even enough, the doctors, the interns who have saved a lot of people's lives should always be given the allowances that they need. Likewise, actually, it is very hard to include them into the public service and apply to the public service. My advice to the government of Uganda, let's get the money, let me take the universities. Universities will follow up on their students, who are doing the intern, such that they could get what the materials to use while doing their work, such that they can also be motivated to continue studying, such that when they finish up their education, they know that Uganda has got a future in the medical sector, and they do not leave the country to go somewhere else and work. Let the government pay them money, because there is always the value for money. They keep always working. What is taking place from the interns in the education, in the health sector, should also be taken to other sectors of the state, because the quality of the country's labor force determines what the country gets in return as far as the GDP is concerned. Now we look at the output that Uganda is producing, and you wonder what is taking place, what the quality of labor force. Those ones who can produce quality left the country, they are in the diaspora. Why are they leaving the country? No money, less money is paid to the professionals. Let the government pay the interns from all the sectors through the universities, such that even those young children who are striving to become doctors, to become engineers, to become teachers, to become what? They are motivated towards studying. I remember when we were still studying, we could study so much that we can engage, such that we can enjoy the government allowance when we are given at government university. But now, if the government is trying to fight around such that it doesn't pay that, then I don't understand what will happen to the future of Uganda as far as professionals are concerned. Thank you so much, the moderator. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu. Thank you very much for that wonderful oversight of this issue. Thank you very much for the wonderful submission. Let me have, on the same note, let me have Stephen. Stephen, do you hear me, Stephen?
Yes, and I've been following Mr. Kisitu very well.
Yes. We seem to be having trouble where there is no respect for the future professionals. In developed countries, people tend to value this young generation because they know they are the ones who will make the future professionals. I saw in the video whereby these medics were demonstrating peacefully, taking their document to the parliament, were being banned on the police trucks, which was really very disappointing. These are professionals of the highest level. In countries, in other countries, they take them like babies because they are the ones on whom the lives of the people stand. When I was doing my doctoral thesis, I did it in the challenges of staff retention among healthcare. And one of the most pertinent observation was about the burnout of these doctors or medical officers or medical personnel. There's a total burnout, psychologically, physically, and emotionally. So what is your take about what happened in Kampala when they were being beaten and wrapped up?
Now, you see, just like I mentioned earlier on, Uganda as a nation and as a state, we are almost reaching the verge of collapse. Now, these are the after effects that demonstrate to you that we are bracing ourselves for the worst. Uganda is showing all signs.
Yes, go ahead. Yes, Stephen, go ahead.
You will discover that these people had a reason. They had justifiable reasons, really, to demonstrate and demand for what they deserve. Medics in Uganda are really paid peanuts. When you look at this generation, you'll discover that 70% of medical students are paying for themselves. And they're paying for courses that are costing them almost over 1,500 US dollars. Now, in other countries, that one is affordable. In Uganda, anything beyond 1,000 to an ordinary folk, to an ordinary parent, that is beyond their reach. But parents are overstretching to ensure that they can sustain their children and make them win such decorated kind of courses. And it is the reason why they are stretching. Now, during our time when we were at the university, most of the medical courses were being paid for by the government. I'm talking about 20 years ago. Today, the trend has changed. Now, when you look at a medical intern earning 800,000 currently, somebody who is paying a lot of money, paying for their own accommodation, meeting their own meals, buying their own medical equipment, buying everything that they need. And at the end of the day, when you go to government facilities, where they are allocated, they are the ones who do the dunk work. I want to agree with Mr. Chisitu that in all these government facilities, the senior doctors will only appear for 1 hour or 2 hours, but most of the dunk work is done by these interns. No wonder that's why sometimes there are so many fatalities in these hospitals. Why? Because the management of patients, because of what is happening economically, is now being left into the hands of these young learning medics. The reason is that the senior doctors have their own hospitals. Others, they are international. You'll discover a senior doctor who is based in Mulago but has a related kind of service in South Africa, has an assignment in France, he has an affiliated hospital in India, and that is the kind of routine. So in Uganda, you'll discover that now the bulk of this work is left to these interns. So the interns are therefore justified to demand for an increment. Why? Because 800 out of these 800 that they have been earning, it is part of what they use to pay for their accommodation, to meet for their meals, and then meet all other life expenses. Realistically, this would be peanuts. The life of a medical student at the university is very, very expensive. So what was the genesis of this demonstration? One, that it was justifiable that they did an increment. They met the president, who, as usual, out of shame, promised that he would deliver, they would be paid. But they refused to let down their guns until after, because I think they knew this mistake. They refused to cow out, and they continue with their sit-down strike. Now, when things are not working out, they plan to go to parliament to present their issues. It was very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate I do not know which kind of video you have shown them, but of course there is a common video where these young men were wrapped up like terrorists, bundled on police pickups. They are sitting on their heads. Now, these are life-saving professionals being treated like these goons of Kisenyi, like these pickpocketers. It was very unfortunate. Now, when you look at what is happening, you will discover that all this is an indicator of what is happening even in other departments. The teachers are equally victims of this. It is not only the medics, and it is the reason as why most people are running away from this profession. I have very many examples of children who have studied medicine, but they have chosen to do other things. There are those ones who are doing now business. There are those ones who have now decided now to go to downtown because it seems to be more paying than the professions that they have studied. And that is a very unfortunate scenario. Many of our professionals are now escaping out of this country. It is a very, very unfortunate scenario. I want to suggest, as I bring everything to a close, I know quite often this platform is listened to by even those who are in government. Let them wake up. Let them wake up and reorganize this country. Before they came to power, the medical profession and all other professions were highly respected and highly rewarded. Today, you are a medic with all the stress that is associated with this kind of profession. It is laughable. It is very hard to find a medic being positioned to own a decent accommodation. Those who have children, to pay for them in better schools. It is very, very hard for them to live a life that they should be living. A life deserving the toil that they go through. These doctors are more or less almost earning peanuts, like police officers, like primary teachers. They all fall under that category. The reason is that the authority-wielding agents today in this country, they don't respect what we call intellectual property. They don't respect it. And it's the reason why, unless when you join the army, that's when you can find comfort. But if you're not in the army, if you're not in the state house, then you'll be paid peanuts. So it takes me back to our cry. It takes me back to what I had somebody talking about national dialogue. That this country almost has collapsed. If the politics has collapsed, then there is no way you can expect life in other circles. You cannot expect life in the hospitals. You cannot expect life in schools. You cannot expect life in the judiciary. Everything is in the total mess. So, whatever happened when these guys were presenting their issues, trying to present their issues to Parliament, and the way they were handled, it is characteristic of this regime. Very brutal, blood-sucking, carefree. They don't mind. They know they are not ruling according to the will of the people, but they are ruling according to the will of their gun. And as long as they wield the gun, they are still in charge. So, Mr. Moderator, as I conclude, it is very unfortunate. Apart from what you saw, you need to visit the hospitals in Uganda. Most of these hospitals have beds that were left behind by Obote 1. The mattresses are full of bed bugs. Most of these, the so-called, there would be theaters are not there. The accommodation for these medical officers, especially in the countryside, they are not there. Electricity and running water, all these facilities are lacking. Now, when you look at the working conditions of these officers, it is really dire and wanting. And the reason for that is that the people who are handling this country have really lost esteem. They have lost, they have lost focus, and they are in their own world. They are totally detached from reality, and it is the reason why if somebody tries to demonstrate or somebody brings reality to them, they look at him as a rebel. They handle him like a terrorist, and that is the reason why these medics, even with justifiable reason, Dr. Mwebesa was not ashamed even to write a firing letter. You get it?
Thank you, Stephen.
So thank you so much.
Say bye-bye to our viewers, because it seems like this will be our last time for now.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Would you say goodbye to our viewers?
Oh, please, goodbye to all of you who are listening to me. I know we are seated on different time zones. In Uganda, it is 11 o'clock. We are almost getting to bed. I don't know the different time zones of some of you, but I just want to say bye-bye. Let's catch up again next time. I want to thank you so much for all your contributions. I know my friend Honorable Kayunga has been online. I know Charity has been online, and Mr. Chisitu and others that have not been in position to know. May the Lord God bless you. Let's continue to pray for Uganda. Let's continue to add our voices. Let's continue to speak against the ills. One day, the curtain will fall down. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen. He's a very good articulate, and he gives very good observation of what is really happening in Uganda. Let me bring in Honorable Kayunga within 10 minutes, Honorable, because we're trying to wind up. I want you to look into the issue of the medics. You saw what happened, and the medics are being harassed. In other countries, people tend to handle them with gloves because they are the future of the nation. In Uganda, they are given peanuts, and yet when they come out, they are being harassed. What's your take on that, Honorable?
First, I congratulate the medical interns here in Uganda for which they are opportunity to do internship at stake for purposes of resolving a long historical challenge to government of completely hard to say the first lady, because for people the kind of work they do for so long, for so little facilitations and document, you could really say they had the. So I salute him. I was blessed to serve as a student leader, President Makere, and I worked very closely with medical students. One thing we must all appreciate is that the medical profession in our own setting has suffered so much, has sacrificed so much, has hardly been appreciated by anyone. the extent that sometimes many young students still wonder whether it is even worth to pursue this very noble profession. I had colleagues say, "Oh no, we do." The other day, I saw in a group of lawyers saying, "Oh, we as lawyers, no, we also do clerkship. We are not facilitated." And I said, "Yes, we did clerkship, but we didn't sleep on what? We didn't sleep in courts. We didn't have to run around going friends to bring in blood for patients. So the hospital system in Uganda currently largely runs on the sacrifices of these young doctors, the interns. And what the Ministry of Health needs to appreciate two things. One, that apprenticeship, which is training really with the remuneration, is well protected and enshrined in the law. So it's not like they're doing them a favor. No. There is a contract, whether written or unwritten, that they will be trained, but under this training they will also be offering some services and they will be paid for those services. But for heaven's sake, if you can't even avail adequate service, it can even be enough to transport them from there, wherever they stay, or even accommodate them, or even be able to avail adequate means, then you are basically taking this for you. But you know, for this again talks so much about the regime. The regime doesn't care. They don't give the Americans a damn, because why? Because for them it's about power. So it's about patronage. So you will get so many praise singers of the regime, fellows who do unbelievable things, basically who are fanatics of the regime. They will not only be availed land cruisers worth hundreds of millions of shillings, but they will actually get monthly participations that probably one person gets about what probably 40 or 50 years get it. So you can see the priority is basically placed in power retention. So basically this is one of the symptoms. And wherever we are, we must congratulate, we must stand very firmly with the medical interns, with the medical professionals, because for really so long. So sometimes people really wonder, why do we train our doctors? The other day, there is a fellow was telling us that he had a relative who was sick, and they rushed him to South Africa. Only to reach there, he was treated by Ugandan doctors from Teso. And that says it all, because now we precisely have pushed our doctors to, as soon as you graduate, as soon as you get your first certificate to allow you to practice, run the furthest you can for better remuneration. And let it not appear as if doctors want too much, or this young interns. Think about it. About 700,000 is probably about what? It's not even $200, yeah?
It's almost $200.
Yeah, it's about $280. So you can imagine, that's what you want this fellow to rent a house on, to transport himself on, to basically have meals on, also put on a nice shirt or dress and be decent as a doctor. And remember, the family at this point, for some students, especially those who have gone to even private universities or even government universities or private sponsorship, At this point, the families have run out of everything because they have spent so much on this child. So we are actually hoping that now she can support the other siblings. So by then we find ourselves here where I was so disheartened by the use of heads. For them to really come out and ridicule. And what is really surprising, these are doctors, actually, who are speaking. You have minister who is a doctor, you have director of health, the director general of social. It's ridiculous. But you know what? This is all. It all they say the fish needs to run from the head. So this they learn from the best. It's the spirit that runs the country. So the approach, the spirit in there, how people behave and how people abuse their offices and the authority they have. This can stem from somewhere. So you imagine if you have, let's say, a director of a company, managing director, if he's very respectful, I can assure you there's no manager below him that's going to give questions, but they are going to be fired. But if they know that's how the organization is run.
They do everything with impunity.
In fact, sometimes you're even promoted. Yes, you are even promoted for towing the line because now you are seen appreciated in the spirit of the regime. Then that earns you promotions.
Okay, Honorable, thank you very much. We need to caught up by time. My producer is telling me.
Yes.
But can you wrap up within 1 minute and then say goodbye to our viewers?
Yes, as I conclude, let's not appear as if all hope is lost. In our political engagements, in the challenges that the medical professionals now are facing and the other professions, not all hope is lost. It is said that the darkest hours of the night are towards the morning.
Yeah.
So we may be seeing so much darkness, but believe me, we will get out of this. All we need to do is make sure that each one of us makes a contribution to cause a significant transformation of our country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you say goodbye to our viewers?
Thank you. It was a wonderful having a conversation with you. I pray that we keep focused on making sure that we turn around our country. There is no one to do it for us. And thank you for participating, for listening, for viewing. It's always a pleasure to contribute towards the democratic progress of our country.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Kayunga, for that wonderful participation. I believe we shall one time call you back because we had some challenges with the technology and we couldn't have you visibly. But I think we shall have you visibly into the studio. And finally, let me have Madame Charity. Madame Charity, you've been hearing everything that the other discussants have been bringing over. And it seems like we all rotating on one thing and saying it's not right to handle the future generation the way it is being handled. We need to have a focus on how we can bring up our children and our future replacement in the right way, knowing their rights and not being harassed because they have talked about their rights. Can you dig deep into that within 10 minutes as we try to wind up?
Okay, I will give you less than 10 to give you a chance to wind up. Now, thank you, Honorable Gerald, and thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Chisitu. I think I had your argument, and they're all very solid. The thing I thought I should underscore from all that they said is the question of poor planning. Yes, our young professionals were poorly handled. and that they do the donkey work, like you have heard. But because of poor planning on the part of government, we ended up with a strike from medical interns. Every year, we have universities right now that churn out students, medical students in a year, like KIU Medical University turns out 3 times medical interns a year. Makerere University annually turns out 1 lot of medical interns a year. And there are several other universities that are turning out medical students to go and work as interns. What happened is that government had originally planned for them and was supposed to release that money in the last financial year. When they got to this year, they discovered that the interns had grown twice the number that had been available. And so they could not pay half and not pay the other half. But that all came from poor planning and lack of statistics. If you know that a certain amount of interns are being produced per year, you can do an extrapolation of numbers and project into the future. The same thing that we do for statistics like UBOS, National Population Census. We are able to tell that in the year 2040, we will be 50 million Ugandans or will be 70 million Ugandans. So it is possible to extrapolate numbers and tell with precision how many interns will be coming out in the next 4 or 5 years and plan for those. Unfortunately for us, we plan for now, and then when an issue comes up, we remember to plan for then. I want to say that actually one of the panelists said the medical interns do more work than the senior doctors. I lost my father because he was left in the hands of interns who kept, what I would say, they kept try and error on my father. They did a try and error on different medical things on him until I lost him. It was so sad. It was the time of COVID. You could not fly him out of this country. You could not move. It was just hard. And the only thing to do was to trust whoever was there, and it was just interns, young doctors. And every time we asked, where is the physician? Nobody. When we asked, we want a senior doctor here, nobody. I was sad. We were paying billions through our nose with my brothers. Actually, millions, not billions, but millions. So it was so painful. But to see that our health system has collapsed to this extent, those in governance will one day pay with their own as well. The second issue I thought that I should conclude with now is the question of poor management. That you saw what the Ministry of Health did, that response of I don't care was a whole question of poor management. And until we learn to do the 2 good things of good management and good planning, our health system will continue to ail. And we need to urgently work on the issue of apprenticeship and on the issue of improving Uganda's health system. It is urgent. It is needed like yesterday. Thank you, Dr. Juko. Thank you to every Ugandan that managed to tune in and to watch us and listen to us. Thank you for our producer. I think he's done a commendable job. It wasn't easy tonight, but you've done a good job. Thank you to everyone else that I was able to interact with for the first time. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Charity, for the wonderful submission and discussion that you've given to this discussion. And I would love to give Mr. Kisitu 1 minute to say goodbye to our viewers, please. Mr. Kisitu, can I have you say goodbye to our viewers, please?
Thank you so much, the moderator, for the opportunity once again. All my co-panelists, please thank you so much for the time you spared. Indeed, this is what they call the true heart of patriotism. And we should continue loving our country. But, as I conclude, we shall not have any change in as far as all the systems of our country are concerned. Up to when the government has changed, up to when the poor Ugandans stand up and they say that enough is enough. But if we continue having the same government year in, year out, things will become worse, and I don't know whether worse is there, but it will reach that extent. I beg to submit at that point. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to our viewers. Thanks to the producer. But more thanks to Dr. Nundiri. You're the reason why we are this. Sincerely, may God reward you abundantly. Have a good night, nice day, all our viewers in Uganda and outside.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu. We're very privileged to have you. Usually, whenever we want you, thank you very much, Charity, for the wonderful submission, and thank you, Stephen, for that great discussion you've added, and as well as Honorable Kayunga Gerald. It has been a long time that we discussed, and I believe everyone has given out the best, regardless of the challenges that we have gone through to get you people on board. We thank you very much for the endurance that you always put in when it comes to fighting for the rights of the people of Uganda. We also thank our producer for the wonderful, wonderful work that you put across to make sure that things are really good, right. We thank our viewers, listeners from the radio and also from the TV, and those that get us live stream, and we appreciate your time. We hope everything is gonna go right if we all participate, because I always mention Uganda is for all of us. We always try to put across what we can. For us, we have put across this through the interaction with the public by getting new guests and discuss important issues that are very, very pertinent to our lives, and trying to make sure that we galvanize all forces of change together. This platform is there particularly for the guns of change, to make sure that we come together and bring all our efforts together so that we can be able to get something out of the sense out of everything that we try to discuss. These people are always objective. We bring objective people, and every one of you, of the viewers, should be objective to pick what you think is right and what you think doesn't help you. We thank you once again. We cannot go beyond this because of time, and we want to hope that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, and a wonderful weekend. And possibly, I'll be back. It'll be Christmas, and I'll say happy and Merry Christmas for every one of you. Because by Sunday, I think when I come back in the studios, there will be a past issue. Keep it up with UNN. We hope to see you once again the same time, the same day on Sunday. God bless you, and God bless Uganda. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.